10 minutes. T-minus 9 minutes. T-minus 8 minutes. T-minus 7 minutes. minutes. T-minus for minutes. T-minus 3 minutes. T-minus 2 minutes. T-minus 1 minute. Stand by.
How about that?
Up and at 'em, everybody. Let's go. It is Canada's daytime sports talk show here on the Game Plus Television Network. And live across 32 U.S. states, peering in as well. And we're also streaming on YouTube and in podcast form. So if you're listening later, oh, you missed a lot live. I'll tell you that for free. No Moose. Moose ain't here. Moose ain't here. He's on vacation, and that's cool. We got Les Lazaruk, my brother from another mother, going to be co-hosting Riding Shotgun today. The voice of the Saskatoon Berries and the Saskatoon Blades, and a baseball and hockey aficionado and a lot of other sports. Les is with us. Coming up in hour two, Reid Johnson from the famous Markcast, and he is our Washington Commanders insider, by the way. He'll be joining us from Washington State, so that's coming up in hour two. Lester, my good man.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you, RP?
100%. I'm so excited. And we had Rob Carney yesterday, you today. We don't have a lot of time in the opening segment, so Les, I'm going to dive into this. We'll get to some stories later on and stuff I'd like to get to with you. The big story here in the Quick Six Show topics, which I know you can handle. Ben Rice's game-clinching home run in the ninth inning allowed the visiting New York Yankees to snap the Blue Jays' franchise-best 11-game win streak last night. Jazz Chisholm Jr. had a home run and 3 RBIs for the Yankees in the 5-4 victory, while Cody Bellinger added a solo shot. Jays still lead the AL East by 3 over the Yankees, and they'll do it again tonight. In your world, Les, what I'm hearing, Toronto is on fire in a good way with Blue Jays mania. I would suggest the whole country is. How's it rating for you?
Yeah, it rates, absolutely, because I didn't think the Blue Jays would be anywhere near this good, and especially when they had brutal starts to the year. For Anthony Santander, their big free agent pickup at outfield in the offseason, he's done absolutely nothing. Now he's on injured reserve. Dalton Varsho got hurt early in the season. Actually, he didn't start the season. He came on, he hit 8 home runs. Hey, great, and then he gets hurt again. So, I mean, you lose 2 big guys like that, and what are you going to do? You shouldn't be that good. But hey, big kudos to Nathan Lucas and Addison Barger and Ernie Clement. They have been phenomenal for the Blue Jays this year. And do you really need Varsho and Santander coming back? Yeah, you do. You do need those two because they're proven big leaguers who can probably come through for you. And you need Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to pick it up in the power department. He's hitting okay, but only 13 home runs. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, you didn't mention Vladdy and you didn't mention Bo, and I'm just sitting here going, wait until those guys get going, along with the rest of the cast, right? So I'm excited with where things are going, but I want to say this. This opening segment will be all about the Blue Jays. Our good friend Jamie Campbell, who was on this show last week, and you had him up at the Berry Patch last weekend, right? Jamie Campbell said on Twitter that he had a nice, long, respectful discussion with Michael Kay, the Yankees voice, last night. I think it was after the game. And I think it's kind of funny for those that don't know, Michael Kay, the Yankees voice, longtime Yankees TV voice, said a few weeks back that the Blue Jays aren't a first-place team. And Jamie kind of shoved it where the sun don't shine on him, as did the Blue Jays. And it was a real back and forth between the two. And I'm sitting here going, it's the broadcasters, man. We don't matter. But people are sitting here watching you and me. We're the broadcasters. We're the longtime voices of the team. Did that take on too much of a life of its own, Michael Kay versus Jamie Campbell? Or can what the broadcasters say really reflect and cause problems, do you think, for teams?
Shouldn't cause problems for the teams unless the broadcasters are being negative towards their home team. But the playful back and forth, and I still think it's playful to a large degree, between the two broadcasters of two different teams, taking digs at one another's team and one another to a large degree, yeah, big deal. That's the way it goes sometimes. I mean, you got to have a thick skin in our business. You just can't be all ego. You got to be able to take it a little bit as well as dish it out.
Well, we are in the entertainment business for sure, but it's just what I will say with that is Michael Kay, I like his calls. I've been listening to him for a long time, as have you, I'm sure. Any baseball fan has. He's the voice of the Yankees, for God's sakes, on television. When he said the Jays aren't a first-place team, that was just frustration coming out. That's the Yankees' mystique. They think they should win every game, and they're better than everybody else, right? And maybe for the Blue Jays, take a snicker at that and go prove them wrong. That's how I would deal with that, but not throw it back at
the other thing that Michael Kay got upset about, though, was that he happened to see a clip of Jamie Campbell with the broom out prior to the fourth game of that series, in which the Blue Jays did sweep them in 4 straight, by the by. So he didn't like that all that terribly much. And of course, that's what led to his comments. Hey, Michael Kay standing up for his team, as he should. But, he also has to have a thick skin and realize that it's a long season. There's still, 65 games left to go?
Oh, yeah.
Anything can happen still.
Yeah, and I'm not willing to go out on any limb to say how this is going to end for the Blue Jays because I don't know enough about it, and it doesn't look like you want to either.
Not for me, thanks.
I mean, I'll make some predictions on things that I know about. The Dallas Cowboys going to miss the playoffs this year. I don't have a problem with that. Dixon writes in and says, Dixon says, I only watch for the broadcasters. The games are secondary. I only watch to see if my bets are going to hit. Okay. Well, it was a little bit of a facetious comment. I know firsthand what the broadcaster says can cause a lot of problems for both teams and themselves. So I get that. I just wonder if there was too much to do over Michael Kay or Jamie Campbell. And I wish we had more time in this segment, but we really don't. But 2 minutes? Yeah, we do. Well, listen, because we're going to plunge into, in the next segment, NFL, CFL, and NHL. So I'll just leave this with baseball. Now would be a good time. Les and I are both voices in the Western Canadian Baseball League. Les for the Saskatoon Berries, me for the Moose Jaw Miller Express. I, for my own reasons, love it. But what are yours? Why do you love the WCBL so much, Les?
Because it's baseball, period. I mean, I always tell people when they say, why are you doing this for? And I always tell them because I was a much better right-handed baseball pitcher growing up than I ever was a hockey goaltender. So baseball was always my first love. Yet there aren't a lot of great opportunities to do baseball play-by-play at the highest level in the country. Basically, there's 2, and actually now there's only the 1 because there's no more radio broadcast of Blue Jay games. But, I mean, when you only have really that one big job to do play-by-play baseball in the country, and Dan Schulman, by the way, is the creme de la creme, I think, of everybody that does baseball in North America. But as a result, you kind of gravitate towards the job where there's a little more opportunity for a guy such as myself, such as yourself, RP. And as a result, that's why you end up. That's why I like baseball, though. That was because I got an opportunity. I had the opportunity in '94 to do the Winnipeg Goldeyes in their return to the city, and now doing the Saskatoon Berries, lots of fun. I love it.
It's the highest level of baseball for that age group on the continent. It's NCAA collegiate.
Exactly.
So that's one. And 2, when I got to be so much older than the players in both CFL and junior hockey, I'm like, if I can't hang out with these guys. But last night was dad's night for the Millers. It's like so is popular with the NHL teams, right? The dad's trip. So I got to take photos and meet all the dads, and they watch every game. And they're all my age. I'm like, hey, it's a rejuvenation. I never thought about this. So that's exciting.
Sure.
Anyways, we have a lot to get to when we come back as the Quick Six show topics continue here on Game Plus and streaming.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Pedersen Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Pedersen Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Welcome back, everybody. It's the RP Show live on Game Plus Television. Wakey, wakey. Let's get the comments going, everybody. If you're streaming, like it, share it, comment on what we're talking about, because it's all going on the table now, or text in on the Western Dodge text line 902-518-3033. You can text us right here in the studio at Golden Ticket. Proud partners of the Rod Pedersen Show, Western Dodge and Moose Jaw, big city selection with small town service. Les Lazaruk's with us from CJWW Saskatoon. Les says this is going to get him going, okay? Before I jump into Week 7 in the CFL, I woke up this morning to an email from NFL Canada. The title of the email, Football's Back. Or actually, I wrote it down. Welcome back, football. I'm like, oy vey. This is NFL Canada. What do you think?
Yeah.
I've kind of got the chip off my shoulder as the CFL guy, the small man syndrome that CFL fans suffer from. But that was still a shot at the Canadian Football League. I don't care who you are. This is NFL Canada. You don't need to say welcome back, football. We're so glad football's back. The CFL's been playing since May. I have thoughts that I'll get going in more into. But when you first hear that, what do you think of with NFL Canada saying that today?
Well, and then really, like the Canadian Football League doesn't have to take a back seat to the NFL. I know all about the arguments about how much superior the athletes are and how much better the game is. There are still some things about the NFL rules that drive me up a wall. For instance, when will we ever actually see a kickoff returned in the NFL before the month of October? Maybe even the month of November. Probably not at all. Because these guys are booming kickoffs through the end zone or into the end zone. Nobody returns it. Like, come on. Is there no special teams? Punt. Everything's fair caught. Hardly anybody returns a punt. I don't like that. Now, the whole idea about short kickoffs. Short kickoffs, you have to announce your intention to do so, and you can only do it once in the game, only in the fourth quarter, only when you're behind. Excuse me, one of the greatest plays of all time in a Super Bowl was, I can't remember the teams involved, but there was a short kickoff to start the second half. It was recovered by the kicking team. They went down the field, scored a touchdown, and boom, went on to victory. Turned the whole tide of the game around. The element of surprise needs to still be a part of the short kickoff, and you'd take it away in the NFL. It is really indeed the no fun league. So for them to do that and say that sort of a thing today because everybody's back in training camp, welcome back football, yeah, you're rubbing me the wrong way.
Well, and the thing on all of that is, and maybe I'm just living in this world of rainbows and unicorns that we can all get along. Like, I don't like when the fans do the CFL versus NFL argument. I don't like, because they're both great. But when the leagues themselves are doing this, when the NFL, and I did write it back, welcome back football. That's what NFL Canada said. I'm like, it's so dismissive of the Canadian Football League. And that is my point. Is it unreasonable? Because I dream of a world, less, that the two leagues can work together. Can you imagine what it would do for the CFL? It wouldn't do a whole lot for the NFL. They're fine.
No.
But that they would work together in marketing each other and getting along rather than this. And what it would do globally for the Canadian Football League. Because, and the biggest reason I say this is, you know that I work in the mental health and addiction recovery world. In that world, we all work together. And we have tremendous success, pulling in resources to save lives, man. We have an unbelievable success rate at that. But maybe that doesn't translate to sports and the world. I don't know. Like, why can we not all get along?
No, it doesn't translate, unfortunately, because everybody wants to be the better one. Everybody needs to feel and pound their chest and say, hey, we're better than you are. And you see that in life. You see that in business. You see that all over the place. It's just the way of our world. It is unfortunate. You'd like to be able to work together and resolve a lot of the world's problems, period, not just the problems that are going on in sports, but what about in the world, period? It would be nice to be rid of homelessness if we could somehow work together and find a way, et cetera, et cetera. But we just don't do that. We don't have that basic kindness and human decency as a collective group to get together to do that. And it's hard to ask the NFL to come together with the CFL and risk the idea that, you know, you're helping out an inferior league, so to speak, in your mind, but help them out to be a league that could certainly help you out. I mean, they've tried how many of these spring football leagues in the U.S. once the NFL is done, and they've all fallen flat in their face because it's not the NFL. The NFL really hasn't helped them because what's it to gain for them? But I really think that if they were to do it and wanted to sustain football as a sport year-round, then you do it by helping out the CFL when they get started in May and have some sort of a lead-in into what you're doing right about now.
You and I come from the hockey world where while the NHL doesn't necessarily prop up the junior leagues or even college, they don't fight with each other, which is what the NFL and CFL does. And that's kind of the difference between football people and hockey people, to be honest with you.
True. Carlos
is watching in Indianapolis, writes in, and he says, football leagues working together would be good for the game, especially downstream, down to the grassroots levels. And that's my point. I mean, we're going to get around to the actual games here in a second, but I appreciate Les engaging me in the conversation and the people, the viewers chiming in as well. I clicked on the email from NFL Canada, and it went on, Les, to show the Cardinals mascot and I think the Seahawks mascot were at an exhibit at the Calgary Stampede. They're like, the NFL takes on the world's greatest outdoor show. You know what it is, greatest outdoor show on earth. And then Keon Coleman, Buffalo Bills wide receiver, a photo of him at the McMaster's Children's Hospital in Hamilton. I'm like, oh my God, they continue to eat Canada's lunch and the CFL's lunch. Yep. I mean, I'm sure the CFL teams are doing community visits and that type of thing. And they're also in season. The NFL was not, but if they are, I don't see it anywhere. So the NFL's kicking their ass.
True, very much so.
Okay, we'll move on from that. Les is saying there is not a world that the football leagues can work together. You say society is devoid of decency. I don't believe that it is. It's just, well, I think it's buried very deeply. But sports is a bad example of how you should live. Everybody looks up at sports, and it's like, that's not how you're supposed to live and treat each other. Anyways, before I move on, thoughts on that, or are we done?
Oh, I think there's some correctness in that too. There's something coming up on my screen that's blocking you off. Why does that insist on wanting to do that? Anyway,
it's all good.
I think you're right, though. I mean, we do have the decency within us. No two ways about that. But again, sport is not the way to go about it. Sport is about competition, about being better than the other. And the NFL takes it to the nth degree over the CFL because that's just the way they're going to be. So,
and they're winning. Yeah. But I guess my point is this: look at Jamie Campbell from the Blue Jays broadcast coming out to the Western Canadian Baseball League in back-to-back summers. He didn't need to do that. There's a guy from the major leagues propping up our wonderful league, and he didn't need to do that. Why can these other leagues not do that instead of being at war with each other? Because incidentally, the NFL is always going to win. Anyways, moving on to point 3. Canadian Football League Week 7. This shocked the heck out of me. Every Wednesday we do Canada's Game of the Week in the CFL, and I wonder what the leading Game of the Week would be. So here are the games. Thursday night, Montreal at Calgary, and a rematch of the 2008 Grey Cup. as John Lynch would say. Friday, Edmonton at Saskatchewan. Saturday, Winnipeg at Toronto in an actual Grey Cup rematch. And Sunday, Hamilton at BC. What's the game of the week for you?
Game of the week probably is the Thursday game, although it's lost a little bit of its luster if Davis Alexander isn't able to play a quarterback for Montreal. But I mean, Calgary is the best team in the West, and Montreal, although Hamilton would give Montreal a bit of an argument for best team in the East right now. But I would say that Montreal-Calgary would be the two top teams in the CFL. Rough Riders would have a stake in that as well. But yeah, I think that matchup is the one that grabs at me. I'm really interested to see what Montreal can do against a good Calgary team. And can Calgary continue the role they're on? I saw them play in Winnipeg last Friday, Rod, at Princess Auto Stadium, and it just blew me away again with what they're able to do on both sides of the football. They rush the quarterback. They make life terrible for opposition quarterback. Zach Collaros got knocked out of the game. Chris Streveler cannot come in a relief role in the middle of a game. He needs to be prepped prior to a game in order to be effective, and he wasn't that game. And, Calgary just really, really looked good. Their offense, Vernon Adams Jr. is the MOP, without a doubt right now. And Damien Alford, the rookie Canadian receiver, hand him the Rookie of the Year award right now. He's phenomenal at 6'6" and jumping up. Any 50-50 ball in the air is his, basically.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's interesting you say that. And our viewers, this is a wonderful example of the national scope of this program, because the voting has Montreal-Calgary as the game of the week. I'll be honest, I just thought usually it's whatever game the Riders are in on any poll, not just ours, but Edmonton's here, which is in the top 3 cities for viewership for this program. So I thought Edmonton-Sask Friday night would be the game of the week based on our viewership. No, they're all saying Montreal-Calgary. I'll get to your comments in a second, everybody. I'm not quite there yet. But so Montreal-Calgary, rematch of the 2008 Grey Cup, is the game of the week so far. We'll see if that poll holds over the next 24 hours and see what the voting concludes at. But I'll say this for Friday's game here at Saskatchewan. I'm following what's going on in the CFL. Trey Ford and Cody Fajardo splitting reps at quarterback for Edmonton yesterday. Come on, who are they trying to kid? Trey Ford's going to start Friday, isn't he, Les?
He should. Unless they've totally lost faith in him again, like they did last year. But really, I think you got to give the guy the opportunity. Yes, I know they're 1-5, and I know they're struggling, but it's more than just the quarterbacking that's the issue in Edmonton, obviously. So don't just pin it all on Trey Ford. I think Trey Ford should be the guy, and I think he's the kind of guy that can give a Saskatchewan defense fits just because of his mobility. The thing that Trey Ford has to be careful of is not to get too enamored with his own mobility and running ability. He still has to be able to sit in the pocket from time to time, and not just on first read takeoff. Sometimes he has to look for that second and third read on the passing pattern and make sure that it works. Not just immediately, bang, I'm taking off.
Well, you know what's interesting about the poll that we do every Wednesday about Canada's game of the week? Sure, in terms of the matchup, you could vote and say, this is the biggest matchup, Montreal-Calgary. Yeah. But you could also look at it and say, what's going to be the best game? And that, too, probably is Montreal-Calgary. Like Edmonton-Sask here Friday night, no matter who starts for Edmonton, I don't think it's going to be close. The Riders will mollywop them, will they not?
Should. But this is one of these trap games like we always come up with in football. A team that's on a roll. The Rough Riders at 5-1 have looked really good. They looked really good against BC last week, jumping out to that big lead against an Edmonton team that has sputtered and coughed and just had trouble getting out of the blocks entirely. If the Elks can ever get it going, they could be a problem for the Rough Riders if the Rough Riders take them lightly. And to a man, that's what they were talking about on day 1 of Rough Rider practice yesterday.
Well, that's why we all got to watch. Yes, we think the Riders will roll. We got 2 minutes. What's the vibe in Winnipeg? You were just there. Obviously, they can't win without Zach Collaros. What else are they saying?
Concerned, period, about the age of the team, and is it time to roll out the old guard, the guys who've had the windows and have been to 5 straight Grey Cup games and won a couple of them, but lost the last 3. And, everybody's a little bit thinking that it's time to start looking further afield and letting some younger guys come in. There's even talk about Mike O'Shea being moved on, and I kind of find that hard to believe. But I really honestly believe that that they're probably onto something there. So in Winnipeg, there's definitely concern about the long in the tooth members of the Bob, Patrick Neufelds, the Stanley Bryants, those types of people, even to a degree, Nick Dembski at slotback, although he was tremendous against Calgary, one of the few. Zach Collaros is getting up in years. So I have to think that there's a little concern in Winnipeg about the direction of the team and the age of the team.
Carlos in Indianapolis writes that he says, Calgary's the top team, but I don't know if I'm booking Grey Cup tickets. Shy in Saskatchewan says Fajardo will start. Rob in Las Vegas says, I suspect this is the last chance for Trey Ford. If he doesn't play well, Fajardo will get the call. Ryan in upstate New York says, good day, Rod Squad. I'm going to have a burrito for dinner in memory of Ozzy Osbourne. Oh, we got so much to talk about, and we're going to switch to hockey when we come back with Les Lazaruk, the voice of the Blades and the Berries, live here on Game Plus Television.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with the Rod Pedersen Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Pedersen Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina. This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with the Rod Pedersen Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Pedersen Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Les Lazaruk joining us today as co-host with the Moose on vacation. I'm looking forward to viewer takeover coming up, but there's a few things I want to get into with Lester. I've long referred to him as my brother from another mother, and that has not changed, and I don't expect at this stage of the game, Lester, it ever will. He's the voice of the Saskatoon Blades and the Saskatoon Berries of the WCBL, and also on the desk at CJWW Saskatoon. I want to say shout out to my guy Chris from the Bronx. He's watching down there in Deerfield Beach, Florida. All our Florida peeps have come to watch. And actually, that is a pretty good segue here, Les, because yesterday, I'm a little late to the party on this, as I usually am in life. Yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of the Matthew Tkachuk, Jonathan Huberdeau trade. Okay? So I didn't have it in my notes to talk about yesterday because I'm not a big anniversary guy. I'm not a big birthday guy. I'm looking forward, not back. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But I did have a viewer from our Cats and Bolts podcast say, hey, Rod, can you go back and pull the clip where you talked about a couple weeks ago that trade on the Cats and Bolts podcast? And it was his question. David, he's a Panthers fan from Utah, that he just suggested, Les, that was the greatest trade in NHL history. Can't think of any better than Matthew Tkachuk for Jonathan Huberdeau and all the parts that went back and forth between Florida and Calgary. How about you?
In recent memory, yeah, I would have to admit that because, let's face it, the Florida Panthers have won the last 2 Stanley Cups and have been in the final the last 3 years. So that's a pretty darn good track record after acquiring Matthew Tkachuk from Calgary. What has Jonathan Huberdeau and the Calgary Flames done? Well, not a whole heck of a lot, unfortunately, for them. So, yeah, I'm old enough that I can remember this. I would go back to the postseason between 1966-67 and 67-68 when the Boston Bruins acquired Phil Esposito, Ken Hodge, and Fred Stanfield from the Chicago Blackhawks for Pitt Martin, Jack Norris, and I can't remember who the third person was. But the Blackhawks didn't exactly do much for a few years, and the Bruins became the big bad Bruins with Bobby Orr and ended up going on for the next 4 or 5 years, being very, very good, winning a couple of Stanley Cups in there. So, but that Florida-Calgary trade definitely ranks up there among the more lopsided and best trades for a team compared to the other team in NHL history, sure.
You're going to get a bang out of this when you bring that up. So when we talked about this a month or so ago on the Cats and Bolts podcast, one of the viewers Googled best trades in NHL history. Yep. And of course, what comes up is the Gretzky trade. And that's not even the biggest trade, but that's the one that everybody remembers because it's the greatest player in the history of the game, right? So I get why that would be number, but that wasn't a good trade for either team. LA never won a Stanley Cup, and Edmonton, they won one 2 years later, but even Gretzky said we'd have won 4 or 5 if I'd stayed. So that's not even on the radar. And when you bring up the Espo to the Bruins, you got to come down, Les, sometime and visit me in Florida. And I know you're a busy guy. You don't and when you have holidays, you go to Winnipeg. But you got to get and meet some of these Panthers fans. Can you believe, Les, they said to me, we don't want to talk about anything on your podcast pre-1993 when the Panthers came into existence. I'm like, whoa. You don't have kids, Les. But that's like your kids saying, not believing anything happened on Earth before they were born. That's doesn't work that way. It's funny that they would say that.
Man really did land on the moon. That really did happen in 1969. Unlike, some people today seem to think that it never really did, that it's a figment of our imaginations. No, it happened. It really did. Don't take these things away from me.
Well, and that's the thing is I'm like, I can't even, what do you want me to say to that? Because if we're going to sit here and do a hockey podcast, we're going to talk about all scope, 100 plus years of NHL history, and maybe you should learn it. Yes. You know what I mean? But when we talked about this a month ago, the Tkachuk trade, some of the trades that came up that were legit conversation topics were Barry Pedersen and for Cam Neely. Right? Boston, Vancouver. I'm trying to remember the others that were like massively lopsided. It's not a long list. So you brought up a very good one about Espo. That wasn't even on the NHL's list of the top 10 lists.
Because they've forgotten about it themselves. I mean, who's the person writing the article? Probably somebody, probably some Gen Zer or something like that hasn't lived a full life like you and I have and remember these sorts of things. Or we could also be called a lot of other names with regards to what our baby boomer status and what we are able to remember and what we tend to do also forget in our course in time. But there are some things that stick out, and they're a long, long time ago, and that is one of them that really sticks out for me, because when Bobby Orr came along, I became a Boston Bruins fan. I was like 7, 8 years old. And he captured the imagination of everybody at that time, just like Gretzky captured the imagination of everybody in the 80s, and Lemieux in the 90s, and Sidney Crosby, and so on and so forth, and Connor McDavid today. There's always that generational talent. And for me, the first generational talent was Bobby Orr back in 1965, 66.
Let me pause you for a sec. I have as a note here to talk about Trump and the Redskins, but I'm not going to waste yours or my time talking about Donald Trump with you. I want to talk about the Winnipeg Jets and where you see them going, because you're a Jets guy, you're a Winnipegger, and we have so many viewers in Winnipeg. Jonathan Toews, part of the crew. What do you see this upcoming season in Winnipeg?
I hope I'm wrong. I don't see him being like, if they've signed him to be a second line center, I think that's overstating what he is capable of immediately. Maybe he can grow into that eventually. What I mean by eventually, I don't know if it's even this year, this coming season. But I do know what he will do is he will bring veteran leadership that will help. He'll be a help in that regard. He'll bring the ability to be responsible defensively. He'll win faceoffs. He'll kill penalties. He'll be that guy. He'll be Adam Lowry, essentially, except he'll be Jonathan Toews, and they'll have two of those types of guys on the team. They still need second line help. And I mean, right now, I don't see it just yet. Somebody's going to have to move into it. Cole Perfetti's going to have to do it on a more consistent basis than what he did in his 2 seasons so far.
But they took Dallas to Game 6 of Round 2. I guess my point on all this is, do you see them taking the next step? Because I really do. And having Jonathan Toews there as part of it only is a bonus.
Oh, absolutely, it's a bonus. And I think that he does help them make the next move. Is it the next move all the way to the promised land and winning a Stanley Cup? My God, I hope so. It would be so wonderful. I mean, truth be told, I'm not an Edmonton Oilers fan, Roddy. You know that. I'm a Winnipeg guy. I don't want the next Canadian NHL team to win a Stanley Cup, whenever it finally happens, to be, in order, the Montreal Canadiens. Absolutely cannot be them. Secondly, absolutely cannot be the Edmonton Oilers. Thirdly, absolutely cannot be the Ottawa Senators. It can be the Calgary Flames. I wouldn't be upset. It could be the Vancouver Canucks. I would not be upset. We could upset the world. It could be the Toronto Maple Leafs. Everybody would be upset about that, except for me. I would be fine with that. But I would really, really, really love it to be the Winnipeg Jets.
I think we all would. And it's funny because Paul Maurice, as you know, when he won his first cup, and he said, the next team, I would like it to be the Winnipeg Jets. I laughed because I was thinking, if they were lining up against each other in the Stanley Cup final this past June, do you still feel that way, Pomo, if it was Florida-Winnipeg? Yeah. But I think we know Paul well enough to know he was serious about that unless they were playing his team. But I guess that's my point, is the heartbreak of last spring for the Jets. You got to use that and build from it, not crumble. And I really think they will.
Well, they will, but there's another team, though, that has that similar heartbreak, and it's been 2 years running now, and that's the Oilers. They've got to find a way now to take that next step. What does it require for them to do that? Probably better goaltending and some better defense than what they've had. They need people on the blue line that make better decisions than people like Evan Bouchard and Darnell Nurse. They could get, of course, you're never going to get rid of those two. You signed Bouchard for big money, and Nurse has a massive contract that nobody's going to take on. So you're stuck with those two guys. But, you know, you've got to find better defensive defensemen and a better goaltender situation than what you have right now for Edmonton. Winnipeg has that. They've got good defense. They've got good goaltending. Now they've just got to find a second line in order to take that next step.
It's funny. I was just thinking, if you took Connor Hellebuck and put him on the Oilers, what kind of team you'd have? You'd have the Florida Panthers. But even having said that, Hellebuck could have been better in the playoffs. I mean, Bob, there is nobody better. Les, this has been great. We covered all the topics I was hoping to, but you're a professional broadcaster. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll do it all over again.
Yes, look forward to that, Roddy. We'll see you tomorrow.
Stick with me, bud. 1 sec, everybody. We'll be right
Yep.
back with a sports update and a viewer takeover right after this here on Game Plus and streaming live.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with the Rod Pedersen Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more, there's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Pedersen Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with the Rod Pedersen Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more, there's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Pedersen Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Welcome back, everybody. It's the RP Show. We're live from the Golden Ticket Sports Center. Make your birthday unforgettable at Golden Ticket Sports Center in Moose Jaw. Book your birthday party with us for a fun-filled celebration packed with sports, games, and endless excitement. Visit GoldenTicketSportsCenter.com to reserve your spot today. For the next 20 minutes of this hour, well, 17 actually, and then into next hour, it is viewer takeover, you and me. So I'm going to get to a sports update here. Some of the things that I didn't actually get to in the quick six show topics with Les. But as you've noticed, the last 2 days, Rob Carnes co-hosting with me, and Les Lazaruk today. These guys, by the way, offering to come on and fill in for the Moose. Professional broadcasters, as I say. It's a lost art to be entertaining and do it on time and cover all the ground you want. Yeah, that's what we do here at the RP Show. 902-518-3033. I didn't expect this would light a fire with our viewers, not in a bad way. that discussion of Matthew Tkachuk's trade 3 summers ago. I was in Calgary when it went down. If you remember, there was the delayed July 1st or delayed free agency starting that summer, and was when Johnny Gaudreau left Calgary to go to Columbus, and there was a pall over the town on that. And then Tkachuk, after Gaudreau left, informing the Flames that he wouldn't be signing long-term, so you might as well trade me now. And that's what happened. And again, I don't spend time looking back. I learned that from my mentors, guys that I really respect, and some gals like my mom. What's the point? You can't change the past. Just try to learn from it. But I mean, so this anniversary came, and it kind of showed me how big of an impact we've made with our Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning podcast. That what we do down there in Florida, it's the most viewed hockey show in Florida, which wasn't saying a lot at one time. Now there's a lot of hockey shows in Florida, but we were one of the first and voted the best. And we have the viewers to back it up, the numbers. And they were like, Rod, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts? Let's revisit. Was this the greatest trade ever? And I'm like, whoa, I'm thinking about baseball and the WCBL. And am I going to go to the Rider game? Okay, hang on. It's not looking back. It's not what I do. But is it the best trade in NHL history? Ron writes in from Calgary on the Western Dodge text line, 902-518-3033. He says the worst trade, Calgary and Toronto, the Gary Roberts trade. He says also the Gary Leeman, Doug Gilmour 10-player schmozzle. He says Calgary has historically not done the best in trades. And this is coming from a Flames fan. You know, I've spent so much time in Calgary, and we're going back there next week. I can't wait for 2 live shows. And I enjoy it because it's a hockey town. But that's the one thing our American viewers do not understand about Canadian NHL markets. And Serena talks about it all the time, and that they have no idea down here. I'm like, who cares? Because you can't, unless you lived it, you wouldn't know. It's all NHL all the time, 24/7, 365 in the Edmontons and the Calgarys and the Torontos and the Winnipegs. And it's great. Sometimes it's a little much. I'll be frank with you. Sometimes I'd like to talk about something else. That's just me. But that 10-player trade in, what year was it, Calgary? 92-ish? 92, and that set up the Leafs going to the Western Conference final against the LA Kings, right? Yes, the Leafs were at one time in the Western Conference, kids. And it got Doug Risebrough fired, basically. Am I right? The then general manager of the Calgary Flames. Anyways. Wilf in Steinbach, Manitoba writes in and says, hi, Rod and Les Lazaruk. The best trade was Montreal trading so they could draft Guy Lafleur. Wilf, can you please tell me what year that was? You seem technologically adept, even though you're in your 70s. What year was that? Because I laugh. Here's me using my own words against me. Back when I was doing my old radio show, just down the road here, it rhymes with smorchmage. I was saying something on the radio, and John Paddock, talking about what I didn't know, which I don't do anymore. And John Paddock was the coach of the Regina Pats at the time, also former head coach of the Ottawa Senators and the Jets. Paddock called in. And he's like, yeah, you had this wrong. This happened in 1963, similar to what Les was saying earlier about the Phil Esposito trade in 68. I'm like, what? I said, I'm not responsible for knowledge of anything that happened before I was born. I knew what was wrong when the second it came out of my mouth, but I had to say something. Thanks for listening to the show, Pads. See you at the game tonight. And so that's like Panthers fans. We don't want to talk about anything that happened before 93 because to us it doesn't exist. Doesn't work that way. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says the Gilmour-Leeman trade, definitely the worst. Doug Risebrough's brilliance. Ryan McCarthy, you're forgiven. I won't get into why. That's just one ordained minister speaking to the other here. Did you know that, producer Corey, that I'm an ordained minister through the Universal Life Church? Did you know that? Y'all need Jesus back there in the Skycron control room. Hey, Sports update. He was raised Catholic. Why did I go down that road? Sports update for Cool Bet Canada. Chris Bassett gets the start as the Blue Jays close out their series against the New York Yankees tonight in Toronto. Ben Rice's ninth-inning home run lifted the Yankees to a 5-4 win Tuesday, snapping the Jays' 11-game home win streak. Forward Capo Caco has signed a 3-year deal with the Seattle Kraken worth just over $4.5 million per season. The 24-year-old had a career-high 44 points last season in 79 games. Seattle acquired Caco from the New York Rangers in December. And I'm going to get to the NFL in a second. Just to tell you, the sports headlines are brought to you by Cool Bet Canada. Get a welcome bonus up to $200 with the promo code RP200 at coolbet.com. I had this in my quick six show topics, and I didn't even really want to get to it with Les Lazaruk because it's not really his thing, and I'll tell you whose thing it is. Reid Johnson, who's coming up next hour from the Markcast, very popular podcast that he's just he just shut it down. Maybe he'll explain why when he joins us next hour from Washington State. But anyways, he's the biggest, one of the biggest Washington NFL fans I know, because I know a few, believe it or not. AJ Jakubic, the voice of the Ottawa Redblacks, my friend Dean, who's a firefighter, retired firefighter in Las Vegas. I know a few Washington fans. But anyways, Washington's NFL franchise used to be in the news all the time for reasons other than football. That seemed to have changed under new team ownership, but U.S. President Donald Trump's remarks about the team name and possibly holding up a stadium deal are making waves just as training camp opens. Commanders general manager Adam Peters made it clear Tuesday he doesn't expect any of that sort of outside conversation to interfere with their real jobs. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, hang on, stop, wait. It's day one of training camp, and the general manager of the Washington NFL team has to address questions about will Donald Trump changing the team name affect the players and coaches in camp? Are you kidding me? For real? Who's asking these questions? And having said that, as I've written in all caps, come on, NFL, is that the best you got? All the training camps across the NFL, I think as of today, are officially open, all 32 teams. And the best you've got to talk about is Donald Trump changing the name back to the Washington Redskins. And I'm not going to go down to the road of whether I support what he's doing or I don't, because, oh my God, that's another holy war that we don't need to start. But a few weeks back, when nobody was talking about the NFL but us, and I came up with the top 10 storylines in the National Football League entering training camp, not for one rosy red second did I think that the Redskins name, period, would be a topic, let alone the world's most powerful man chiming in on it. There's not other things we can talk about. That's the top story in the Canadian press headlines for the NFL. Oh my God, stop the world. I want to get off. Yeah. Carlos in Indianapolis writes in and says, who knew it was such a slow news period in the NFL? LOL. That's what I'm saying. Where are they finding these reporters, man? I mean, I sit here and bite my damn tongue every day about the state of this media industry. And, you know, that's why I have the actual sports people on here, like DeBuck yesterday. The last time Coach DeBuck was on, I said, why do you think the NFL is staggering their starting at training camps by a week? A half last week and the other half this week. And DeBuck's like, all I can think of it would be a little too overwhelming for the media cycle and news coverage. And he's probably right. And I'm like, and the number one thing, overwhelming, and all they want to talk about is Donald Trump and the Redskins name. Oh my God. Now, here's me, like an idiot, following it, taking the bait. But we won't, because when Reid Johnson joins us next hour, we will talk about this team name thing, because that's his team. But I also want to talk about, was last year a mirage and the Washington Commanders making it all the way to, what was it? The division round, conference championship round? No, they didn't make it to the conference. Yes, they did. Was that a mirage or back down to earth? What do we see ahead for the Washington Commanders? And then all the other NFL storylines. And also, to be honest, what popped into my head last night, I was calling a baseball game at Roswell's Park, and Jenna from Southern California, who was watching earlier, I don't know if she still is or not, brought up the USFL folding. So I texted Reid immediately. I said, is the USFL folding? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, why don't you come on and explain it amid a myriad of other things we'll talk about. Worst trades in NHL history, which was not the question, but Mike Wynn is watching in Winnipeg. He says the Winnipeg Jets trading Timu was the worst trade. But that's another of similar to Howard Chuck, right? They couldn't pay him. They had to let him go. Thank God that's not a thing anymore. Oh, we just cracked a lid on this. We will pick it up when we come right back for hour two, everybody, right here live on the Game Plus Television Network and streaming live.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with the Rod Pedersen Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is, you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more, there's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Pedersen Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RP Show, Hour 2. Yeah, that's right. We're coming at you live from the Golden Ticket Sports Center in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. That's right. It's episode number 1540 of Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show. Coming at you on the Game Plus Television Network, coast to coast in Canada, 32 U.S. states, including the state of Texas. And I got to get my guy, Kenny Nagunst, on here soon from 806 Sports in Amarillo. It's been too long. NFL training camps have fired up, and that's part of what we've been talking about. Now would be a good time to, I guess, re-up the quick 6 show topics for those that are tardy getting in here. What we've been talking about on the program today, 1 hour ago, we went through these quick 6 show topics. Where's my bell? The big story across Canada right now is the Toronto Blue Jays. Ben Rice's game-clinching home run in the 9th inning allowed the visiting New York Yankees to snap the Blue Jays franchise best 11-game home win streak last night. They'll try it again tonight, the Jays, to get back on the snide or off the snide, whatever the snide is. Rogers Center will be sold out, and Chris Bassett will be on the mound tonight for Toronto. Point 2, this did not rile people up as much as I thought that it would, which is disappointing. But I awoke today to an email from NFL Canada, the headline trumpeting, "Welcome back, football." I know those guys. That is a deliberate slight. That is a thing, a deliberate slight at the Canadian Football League. Welcome back, football from NFL Canada. Come on, you guys, do better. CFL's been playing since May, and they're just dismissing them like they don't even exist. And that's rough. Why was there not as much reaction to that as I expected? Because I thought it would really tear apart the CFL fans. They don't. Is it because it's true, or are you above it, or are you're ignoring it because you don't want to take the bait? I'm interested to know. And I asked Les Lazaruk, the voice of the Saskatoon Blades and Saskatoon Berries, 1 hour ago, if we could ever live in a world where we could all work together, but let's specifically say football leagues. Because the hockey leagues don't necessarily work together per se, but they don't consciously work to separate each other, which is what football does. And Les goes, no, as the society, there's the kindness is gone and the working. I'm like, well, I don't know. It's not gone. We all have it inside us. How far buried is it? But he doesn't think we'll ever see a day that the NFL and CFL will work together. If I have that right, what he said. And unfortunately, I think he's right. But, back to the Blue Jays for a second. I brought this up. You got Jamie Campbell of the Toronto Blue Jays television broadcast, who was on this show last week. He comes out here to Western Canada and does a tour of Alberta teams in the WCBL last summer and Saskatchewan teams this summer. He didn't need to do that. Blew it up all over his social media. Saskatoon Berries, Weyburn Beavers. That's leagues working together. Why is that so hard for people? Why don't the football leagues want to do that? I'm done. Point 3, CFL Week 7. How about this? One of the reasons that I get out of bed every day, other than to make a living, is to see what's shaking. What's going to happen today that I don't expect? And one of those is our poll question today, the results so far, which is, by the way, brought to you by EMJ Marketing. Elevate your brand and engage your audience with EMJ Marketing. Check out emjmarketing.com. The question is, the poll question today, what's Canada's game of the week in the CFL? I just automatically thought it would be Friday Night Football, Luke Wilson coming to town, as are the Edmonton Elcamos taking on the Saskatchewan Roughriders at Canada's Football Shrine. No. That's not the game of the week, according to our voters. Montreal at Calgary, a rematch of the 2008 Grey Cup. Thursday night at McMahon Stadium in Calgary is being voted the game of the week. People, do you understand Davis Alexander's not even going to play? Doesn't matter. Macbeth starting for Montreal. Out. Damn spot. That's the game of the week. How about that? I didn't expect that. Point 4 of the quick 6 show topics. I don't want to belabor this too much, but yesterday, July 22nd, was apparently the 3-year anniversary of the Matthew Tkachuk, Jonathan Huberdeau trade. And when I say apparently, it's not like I didn't know that, but I'm not sitting here looking back at yesterday, let alone 3 years ago. So where it really came on my radar was I had Florida Panthers fans writing me that watch our Panthers podcast that we do saying, hey, Rod, what's your take on this? Is this the greatest trade of all time? And can you go back and pull the clip from your show a couple of weeks ago where you talked about it and repost it? And I'm like, yeah, there's hockey fans in Florida, just so you know. And they're very closely watching what we say on that program. So I brought that up with Les Lazaruk. I mean, is this the greatest trade of all time? Now, and it's still bringing in great comments from our viewers here on the Western Dodge text line at 902-518-3033. And it's also an indication of our viewer demographic? Well, we are streaming on YouTube for sure. We're still the number one rated show across Canada in this time slot for viewers aged 55 and over. And I'm proud of that because I will be in that age group before too long. And the only reason I bring that up is our text line has the age of the viewers on it. Did you know that? We can tell. So Wilf in Steinbach, Manitoba was writing in, and he brought up Guy Lafleur being acquired, or best trade was Montreal trading so they could draft Lafleur. He says he was drafted in 1971, so the trade was made in 1970. Prior to me being alive, but that's no excuse. But was that even the best trade ever? I'm not sure. And somehow or another, you Winnipeggers, you people in Winnipeg, tell me if I'm right on this, because I'm not the biggest Jets fan or follower, but Michael Wynn at Ice Time Sports in Winnipeg said the worst trade was getting rid of Teemu Selanne. But it's not what we're talking about. Yeah, you don't want to get rid of Teemu Selanne, but it was the exact same thing as Dale Hawerchuk, was it not? You knew you couldn't pay him, so you had to get rid of him, and thank God we're not in that economic climate anymore in the National Hockey League. But back to the Tkachuk-Huberdeau trade for a second. It is for sure in the conversation of the best trade ever. Now, Calgary people don't want to talk about it, and I understand that. But just from a Panthers perspective, you acquire Matthew Tkachuk, and you go to the Stanley Cup final 3 straight years. You lose the first one, and then win the next 2, and you are, as I saw last week, thanks to FanDuel, the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup next year. Imagine being Bill Zito, the general manager of the Florida Panthers, who, this isn't going to go on his resume, but this is the kind of thing, how it works. He may well go down in history as the GM who pulled off the greatest trade in NHL history. How about that? And then a perennial finalist, but not winner of the NHL Jim Gregory General Manager of the Year award. I went and looked it up because they make a really big deal out of this in Florida, that Bill Zito has never won the GM of the Year award. And so I'm like, is it? Because again, I also don't get caught up in awards. They don't mean anything, but they do feel nice to win. Like us winning Florida's fastest growing podcast with Cats and Bolts, or me winning WCBL Broadcaster of the Year last year. Not a big deal. Feels good, doesn't mean anything. Jim Nill of the Dallas Stars has been named GM of the Year the last 3 consecutive years in the National Hockey League. Jim Nill of the Dallas Stars has won the last 3 consecutive years of GM of the Year in the NHL. Stanley Cup wins in that time. Are you feeling me? These awards look great. They don't mean a lot. I mean, they do and they don't. I mean, I was in Brian Sutter's beautiful house in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. And it's a beautiful ranch home. You can imagine he's a Sutter. And the only hockey memorabilia anywhere, because Judy, I don't think, would have the walls adorned with posters and signed hockey sticks, is his Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year while with the St. Louis Blues in whatever year that was. So it is nice to have in the entrance of your home. Well, and if you like the old country style, which I do, I don't think the Sutters will mind. You walk into Brian Sutter's house off the garage, and it's all hockey lockers. Oak, of course. Hockey stalls to hang your boots, hang your hat, hang your whatever the hell the Cowboys do. And that's where you see his Coach of the Year award. And then you walk into this beautiful home, and there's really nothing hockey related. It's all country style. It's like out of Western living. Janice in Edmonton, who's a Stampeders fan, she writes in and says, I would rather put my time and energy on the CFL and listening to Rod than giving time to NFL Canada. Oh, here we go. I hadn't even looked at the comments here. Thank you, Janice. Andrew Ray writes, and he says, with the way geopolitics is today, NFL Canada should cease to exist as an organization. What they should do and what they will do are 2 vastly different things. And that's why I would like to see them work together. I will never give up. I will never give up. You saw me thinking there for a second. It's in my commentary today at rodpedersen.com. I spend way more time working as a mental health and addiction recovery coach than I do as a sportscaster, believe it or not. And we have an unbelievable success rate at doing that because of the way that we do it. I'm not really going to get into it other than to say we have a network all across North America of coaches like me, and we pool resources and information and bing, 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 bing to save lives. Well, work together. We're not in no way, shape, or form do we work in separate camps fighting each other. But that's what sports does, and as Les pointed out, particularly football. And maybe it is a lost dream to think that these leagues could work together, but I'm just going to say again, if you don't think the NFL moving into Canada, 2 teams from the NFL had exhibits at the Calgary Stampede, one being the Cardinals, and I want to see the Seahawks was the other. You got the Buffalo Bills doing hospital visits in Hamilton. And I'm sure the CFL teams are, Jeff from Calgary. I saw what you were saying earlier, the biggest Stamps apologist and defender ever. But if they are, I don't see it. And, there's this school of thought that it's 11:11 Mountain, just pausing to observe if you celebrate. If they're saying, oh, you went to the hospital and you splashed it all over social media. Why'd you do it then? Did you just do it what did you do? What did you do for your community today? So who cares if we put it on social media? That's the point. If the CFL is doing these things, I don't see it. And the NFL Canada is coming in and mowing the CFL's lawn, has been for a long time. And I'm just saying, you're not going to win the war. So can we not work together? But that's obviously not the case. Reid Johnson is coming up next from the Markcast. Jenna writes in from Southern California and says, bring on the Markcast. I knew you were still here, Jenna. It was Jenna's tweet last night that I saw while I was broadcasting baseball saying that the United States Football League had folded. Navy, and apparently that's not true, but Reid's going to come on and talk about it from the Markcast next. Jenna says, bring on the Markcast. Navy Don in Ottawa writes in, he says, USFL talk, is that league around next year? You're about to find out. Coach DeBuck writes in, watching in Florida, he says, CFL, Noel Thorpe, he's the defensive coordinator for Montreal, will be what Montreal hangs their hat on. McLeod Bethel Thompson takes care of the ball, and Montreal wins this week. Navy Don chiming in again and says, well, let's see if the elbows up crowd will stop going to Buffalo and Seattle. I think the NFL and those markets will notice the lack of Canadians. No, they won't. No. Come on. Don, you're a Navy man. You've been around the world. It's like when Jack Daniels was, an all-American alcohol, was banned from the liquor stores in Canada. As you know, I don't partake. But I saw an interview with the president, CEO of Jack Daniels. They're like, is this going to hurt you? He's like, no. Canadian sales is less than 1% of our bottom line. We're good. Don, if you actually think the NFL is going to miss Canadian fans, then I'm not sure we can be friends. Thank you, producer Corey. And hey, I know that people are writing in here about Ozzy Osbourne, but he's not a soundtrack of my life. I only know the one song, Crazy Train. Is that right? Crazy Train? And that was because it was the theme song of my guy, Kelly Rempel, the Silver Fox. But Jeff in the zone writes in, he says, hey, Rod, any updates on the WCBL? I appreciate the question. Yeah, we got about 12 games left, 10 to 12 games left across the league. Playoffs are right around the corner. Our Moose Jaw Millers are getting on a modest win streak. We're on a home stand this week, Jeff. Okotoks and Saskatoon just cracked the 30-win plateau. Everybody says they're going to meet in the league final. I don't believe it. We've been in there with Moose Jaw 2 of the last 4 years, planning to make it 3. And I love my Moose Jaw Millers. And I love the WCBL. Highest level of baseball at that age group in Canada. And because they're all collegiate athletes, NCAA. Well, we got a minute here. I'll say this. I was talking about it with Les last hour. Why I love the league? Because it's the highest level of baseball in Canada outside the majors. Well, other than the Winnipeg Gold Eyes, but they're not a whole league in Canada. Number two, I didn't want to be a play-by-play guy ever again because I'm like, if I can't hang out with the players and be the same age as the players, I don't want to do it. But last night we had Dad's Night with the Millers, and dagnabbit, wouldn't you know, I met Winston Walls from Terrell, Texas, and Hugh Gurney from Campbell River, BC. Dads from Australia and all over the world that play in this league. And I'm like, Dad, these guys are my age. It's a brand new life. I didn't even see that coming. So it's an awesome league, and there's your commercial endorsement. Reid Johnson joins us next from the Markcast here on Game Plus TV and streaming.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with the Rod Pedersen Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Pedersen Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live. Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Welcome back, everybody. Just ahead of Reid Johnson from the Markcast, the Western Dodge text lines open 902-518-3033. Drive with confidence. Shop Western Dodge and Moose Jaw financing, selection, and service you can count on. The man has joined us while on vacation. That's how dedicated he is, Mr. Reid Johnson. You don't mind me saying from the Markcast, right? Right? Let's go with that.
No. That's okay. You can still. I'm retired. I'm a retired podcaster, but I'm still in the game. I'm like Al Pacino. Just when I was out, I thought I was out. You pull me back in, Rod. I'm on vacation here. What's going on?
You're never getting out. So we'll address that before this interview's over. But give me an update on your life. Where are you and the beautiful Dorothy vacationing, Reid? I'm sorry to be so invasive, but I want to know.
It's great. We're at the mountains. We're doing the Canadian thing. You can see the trees. I think they're playing pickleball here. We rented the court, but yeah, they're all playing. We got the in-laws and the nieces and nephews. And I said, I got to talk to Rod. So we're here, but we're out at the mountains doing the Canadian thing.
I appreciate that. So you're in BC?
Mm-hmm. No, at Central Washington. Yeah.
So it's not the
but
Canadian thing.
When they always talk. Well, no, but they talk the Canadian. Oh, I can't watch CFL during the summer. We're going on holiday. We're going on this. That's what I'm saying. We're doing. Like, I'm out of town. We're on holiday. I guess that's what I'm saying.
I'm teasing you, of course. And well, again, I appreciate you taking the time with us. We'll only keep you for about 15 minutes here. But we're going to get to the Washington Commanders name change, some NFL stuff. But this came across my phone last night. I was broadcasting a baseball game. I saw Jenna's tweet that the USFL was folding. And I'm like, well, Reid's my guy. I texted you immediately. What is going on with the USFL?
So the report out, and I did all, like I said, I was sitting there. We were hanging out last night. My phone's blowing up. I thought we were trading for Geno Suarez or something for the Mariners. I thought something exciting was happening. According to Mark Perry, UFL News Hub, 4 of the 8 UFL teams are going away. So all 4 of the USFL franchises, which technically now is 5 of those that have gone away. So they're going to get rid of 4 of the teams, relocate 4, and then the 4 XFL teams are going to remain. Supposedly.
Well, how do we feel about that?
Yeah. I don't feel really great. This, there was a lot of speculation towards the end of the season. Were we going to get a big ownership announcement at the championship game? Was Tom Brady going to be involved? Were we going to add a team, an expansion, relocation? We miss all those windows, right? So now we're in the summer. The UFL is on the mind of nobody. And now this news comes out, well, we might move 4 of the teams next year. And now news is coming out today. Well, we're thinking about it. It could be next year. It could be, well, we don't really know. Well, now if I'm a Birmingham Stallions fan, well, I feel like I'm shot out to the shed, who cares about me? Or if I'm any of these teams, it's frustrating, and it leaves a lot of uncertainty right now when there should not be uncertainty leading into year 3 of the league.
No, and the viewers are, they're all writing in going, so is it a 4-team league, an 8-team league? What are we left with here?
So you're going to have the 4 original XFL teams. So DC, you're going to have San Antonio, you're going to have St. Louis Battlehawks, and then you're going to have what would it be? Yeah, it'd be the Arlington Renegades, right? So you're going to have the 4 teams of that. They're talking Louisville, Kentucky for the 1 USFL team. They're talking Florida, Boise, Ohio, and then Canton, Ohio. Boise, Idaho, and then Canton, Ohio. Canton at least makes sense. The USFL had used the Hall of Fame Stadium there for a couple years when they were doing their championship games. The Boise thing, and then it might be Orlando, it might be Tampa. They've had teams there in the past, but there's not a lot of firm information on that coming out. I think Mark's still trying to source that.
I have more questions on that in a second, but Kirk in Toronto writes in, he says, hey, all the best to Reid Johnson in the future. Enjoyed the Markcast's CFL coverage. Do you want to explain why you are now a retired podcaster? Because I think, as you know, the Markcast had a pretty big imprint with football fans across the continent. That's what I saw.
Yeah, no, and we're still involved. Speaking of the Commanders, we're doing we decided to do the Madrid trip this year. The Commanders are playing the first ever NFL game in Spain. So we wanted to do that. Dorothy lived in Spain for a while, studied there. I said, would you rather go to Winnipeg for the Grey Cup? It's the same day. Or would you rather go to Madrid for Spain? Wasn't a tough sell. So we're taking the year off, and I just think that's kind of where it all spurred from. And this UFL stuff, I mean, I'm going to be invested. I want to see this succeed. But yeah, what are we talking about today? Like, we're getting rid of, like you said, is the league folding? Is it sitting around? None of these people know what's going on. It's very frustrating.
I know. And here's my last question on that. I'll get to in a second. But you deal with the NFL just like I deal with the NFL. It's the biggest league in our worlds. I'm not a soccer guy. So as far as I'm concerned, it's the biggest league in my world. Yeah. And you get a lot of push with your Washington coverage. I get a lot of push with my NFL coverage, and their fans are asking for more of what we do. So why the hell wouldn't we, instead of fighting with these other leagues, they can't get out of their own way, And because you've been watching the UFL and the XFL since day one, or at least in this latest iteration, what should they have done different in your mind?
Everything that worked about where we are now, and I tweeted this last night, was done with Oliver Luck, Sham Schwartzstein, Vince McMahon, all of those people back in 2020, because they knew how to build, how to market, like the CFL. And I was listening before your talk, marketing and the NFL teams coming up to Canada, right, and the CFL. But, they got in, they built the league, and now everyone that's acquired it, now Fox, Danny and The Rock, you acquire this league, you don't know what you've bought, you have some of these teams that work, and now Fox comes in. It's this baby that was born in 2020 has been so bastardized along the way here that, I don't even know what it is anymore. And no one that's involved, look, we're cutting out the four. So anything that Fox brought to the table now is gone, right? So all of their teams, you brought in the 4 teams, they're gone. You actually took one of the XFL teams, changed it to a USFL team, and you've lost that well. Everything that's been brought in from this merger has ruined all of this. I mean, it's insane that they're literally tearing down the house that they bought and destroying it from the inside.
Navy Don writes in, he says, that doesn't sound very positive for the survival of the league. Andrew Ray writes in, he says, sorry to see the Markcast wind down. I enjoyed it. Jenna in Southern California says, I discovered the Rod Pedersen show through the Markcast. Trust me, I know, and that's why Reid's not getting away from me. I will always pull you in. Reid is not only a Hall of Fame podcaster, but he's an even more exceptional human being, and I know that for fact. BW writes in, he says, Boise, why not Seattle? If I could take a swing at that, it's not a pro town. Why do you – in Florida, I've asked all my football friends, why is college football so big down here? They're like, because it's our NFL in these non-NFL – Knoxville, Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have a better shot in Boise. That would be my answer to that. But what's yours?
They blew it in Seattle. They waited too long. Once the Kraken came back, they lost that time period in that time of year. I mean, we were competing against Kraken games on the same night. I mean, we would have Kraken season tickets, down the street, and then we would be at the XFL game. You can't do that. I think the idea is maybe there's less competition. As you said, the UFL prior to this season had put out these requests, for cities to audition to, bring your team here or whatever. We never heard anything of that. So to me, I feel they're throwing darts at the wall. Hey, maybe we own some trademarks, and hey, can we play at a college stadium? There's no forethought. And now, like I said, you're 2 months out of the season. Any momentum you had is gone. They just laid off all their staff for this year because they can't afford to pay people year round. What are we doing here?
Okay. The last I'll read on this is Carlos in Indianapolis writes, and he says, so once again, the CFL will end up being the only mainstream pro football league not named the NFL that doesn't flop after a few seasons. Okay, I'll admit I was wrong. I wanted to see a merger, but maybe it's a good thing that it didn't happen. I was wrong. Yeah. Uncle, okay? I was wrong. I liked the CFL of the 90s with 8 American teams, but it's not happening. It's all good. Can we switch to the NFL yet, or do you have anything else on that?
Yeah, I would go back to and change my thoughts a lot. I thought that anyone that invested in this had a sense of what to do with the product, and it's clear, and that their interests and well-being and energy and everything has moved on. But yes, I was defending them because I thought they would have some semblance of a thought of how to construct a football league. But clearly, this is just not happening. So
there you go, everybody. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon and The Rock clearly have no idea what they're doing. And I'm not saying that at you. I'm saying somewhere along the line, something broke down here. Donald Trump wants to change the name of your favorite NFL team back to the Redskins.
I was very sad just because I don't want to get into politics. I like my stuff to be separate. And so it could be any president, could be anything. I just want my sports to stay independent of any of that. So I think it's just noise. It is disconcerting because they're trying to get the stadium deal going. I mean, I know that that's a big deal and that they're in the process. I know that the land's been allocated and they need to do the vote, another vote, but it would be a big deal and he could hold it up. But I think that we're just, anything to kind of not pay attention to anything actually big that's going on is what we're going to do.
Good.
I don't want it to change. I don't want it to change.
You're okay with Commanders? You seem to jive with
100%. 100%. I have my Commander's necklace on right here. I mean, 100%. Like, I don't have any. I don't. Let's not. If even one person's offended, I don't want to offend anyone. If even one person, like, don't worry about it. We'll just do something else. It's not a big deal.
It seems to be going fine. So when Trump came out with this, I was as shocked as everybody. Now,
yes,
onwards. Where's the trajectory for the Commanders? Are they still going up? Was it a blip, or what do we see this year?
Oh, I'm excited. We got to get Terry McLaurin signed, right? I mean, he's on for this year, but we got to get him extended. Training camp's going right now. We got Von Miller coming in. That's exciting. Dan Quinn seems excited about that. Obviously, like, Von Miller's about my age, but I think that, he still has a little bit in the tank. I don't think he's playing every snap all season. But no, I mean, we got Debo's coming in. I mean, I'm very excited, and I think the Jaden year 2 jump is going to be, even if he's the same and better, I think it's going to be great. I don't see a sophomore slump coming like we got with CJ Stroud, but he had all the injuries and stuff. So
I watch it all. 32 teams. I don't get too deep on any of them except for the Cowboys, and then I get deep enough that I don't want to look anymore. So I will say this. Yeah, I want to say this about Washington. Who's the reason for last year's surprising run the most? Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, somebody I don't know about, the new owner? What?
No, I mean, Jaden is that much better than everyone, and I think that he started at such a young age, and his intelligence and coming, like, they talk, he's in the building at 4 a.m. with the VR machines on, and it was funny enough through the XFL podcasting. I used to talk to AJ Smith, who was one of the coaches for San Antonio, and they used the VR stuff with the quarterbacks back when they were stuck, kind of during the XFL bubble, and it's a game changer, and be able to sit there and simulate everything at like 300 speed. And then when you go out to the real play field, even though the NFL is so fast, you've trained yourself at, like, it's insane. Jaden Daniels his ability to process that and his temperament and never panicking, it's insane.
I would say the Commanders season, is it going to be a repeat of what they did or better, is one of the top 10 stories in the NFL. What are some of the others in your mind?
I think the Eagles, obviously, and Anthony, my buddy in the group chat, he's pro Eagles and I'm pro Commanders. So as you imagine, that goes over pretty well in there. But, I think Jalen Hurts and all that, they always get that, we're disrespected, and they had the voting come out, and like, what, Jalen Hurts isn't even wearing the ring because that was last year, and like, well, I'm on focus to the next. Like, I like that. I like kind of giving them grief with that. Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs are always floating around there. It's exciting. There's a lot of parity in the league, and I think we're getting rid of a lot of the aged out. The young crop of quarterbacks is really exciting. So it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Well, just looking at that NFC East, which, by the way, you're from Seattle. Why are you a Washington fan?
Because the XFL, because Heineke. We tracked Heineke all through the COVID. That's how I kind of got into all that.
Okay. Well, everybody has their own reason.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, what are they saying in Seattle about Pete Carroll and Geno Smith down there in Vegas? Because you guys have moved on. They've moved on. How do they – I assume they want them to fail. That's a human thing.
Well, what was it? They were talking about Pete Carroll was trying to trade up in the draft to get in front of the Seahawks, when he was now down here in Oakland. I'm excited. Pete Carroll is a really, really old dude, but Pete Carroll has more energy than you and I combined, and I'm kind of excited to see what he does there. I don't think Geno is great, and then I was kind of happy to see them get rid of him in Seattle. I don't know if Darnold's going to be any better, but they saved him $5 million a year or whatever to get Sam instead of Geno. I think either one is a flip of the coin. I would take, and I would put Dak Prescott in there too. I think there's kind of a mid in that range, but they're fine.
It's funny.
They're not Jane Daniels.
Speaking of my Seahawks buddies, I asked John Ryan, the punter, one time, what's it like playing for Pete Carroll? And he goes, you just see him roll up in his champagne-colored convertible Mercedes with his young wife, and he's just bopping. He's cool. He's like, you want to play for a guy like that. There's just something about Pete that 100%. His energy's contagious, like you say. Now, another Seahawk, I don't know if I'll call him a buddy, because I don't hang out with him like I do with John Ryan, but Luke Wilson. I got to get your take on Luke Wilson. You know him from Seattle. You're following what's going on. What do you think about this guy?
I tweeted or I posted in the group chat after I retire this. I'm glad I don't have to have an opinion about Luke Wilson in the CFL. Like, I'm glad that me stopping the podcast. It's great. Like, he's great. I'm just tired of and that's the CFL's problem, right? Like, we're talking about all this. Like, the biggest storyline I've seen about the CFL this year is the TSN broadcaster. And that's insane to me. Like, that should never be the headline. Like, Vernon Adams is killing it in Calgary, right? Like, let's talk about, it was a year ago now when I woke up and the Nathan Rourke trade was going on and all of that. But no, let's talk about Luke Wilson. He's saying poopy words about I can't, and it's an echo chamber. So I'm glad I don't have to live with it every day. I'm fine.
Well, listen, I said the same thing earlier this week. We posted a meme that Dave Campbell in Edmonton, who I'm sure has been on your show, said, he goes, I love him. He's not trashing the league. And all of a sudden people are dumping all over. I said, this is the number one story in the CFL. And people said, no, it's not. If that's the number one story, we're in trouble. I'm like, what really is bigger? You are. Right. Like, what's getting more impressions? We can track these things these days. Luke Wilson is the biggest story in the CFL. Don't tell me that he's not. And I guess what, if you don't mind, I don't want to end this on a down note, but your experience with the CFL has been kind of negative, similar to mine. And I'm talking about that old guard people that just go ahead.
Luke is great. You need and you're great. Like, you're there and you ran so Luke could fly, or, whatever that metaphor is, right? Some people crawl so others can run. Luke's got on that, but you need more than just one. Cause now everyone's like, oh, I love Luke too. I love Luke too. And then everyone now it's still that homogenous, whatever. Don't just latch on to the cool thing. Be your own cool thing. Luke's a cool thing. Rod's a cool thing. Dave, you can all be great. You don't all need to be, it's this, this echo chamber, the mimic society. It's the same with this XFL, multiple reports about the league. It's not multiple reports. It's Mark Perry with UFL News Hub, but then everyone else talks about it. Well, hey, everyone's talking about it. It's one person.
Fair. Well, and it's funny because I don't know how deep. I mean, your CFL fandom is fairly new, but David Benefield, Mr. Furious, BC Lions great, put on Facebook the other day that Luke Wilson's not saying anything new. He's like, we've been saying it for decades, and those of us that did have been ostracized for saying it. So that's what I'm sitting here going, is he going to get away with this? Because most of us have been exiled for saying exactly what he's saying. The difference is he's got the TSN and CFL behind him, backing him, right? That's the difference here. So we don't know how this is going to turn out. But anyways,
maybe,
we got 30 seconds.
Maybe they're finally, they're coming around and we need more adversity that way. I mean, I said the same thing with the spring football and CFL. Nothing ever improved in life by sitting around and saying this is fine. Everything can be improved. So that's great. I'm all about change and moving forward.
That's why we get along. Back to your vacation, buddy. Thanks for this. I hope to talk to you before Spain, but safe travels.
Oh, yeah.
The great Reid Johnson from the Markcast. He does such a great job, and he's such a great guy. We'll be back with a sports update right after this on Game Plus TV.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers, Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with the Rod Pedersen Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Pedersen Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Let's keep it civil. Let's keep it civil, please, in the comments. Yes, we're live on television, Game Plus, but also live on YouTube, and there's some arguments going on in there. Let's try and keep it civil and have fun for at least 2 hours out of the day, and then we can go back to our craziness for the other 22. How about that? A sports update on this Wednesday. The Toronto Blue Jays are aiming to start a new streak tonight when they host the New York Yankees in the third and final game of their latest series. The Yankees edged the Jays 5-4 Tuesday night, snapping their 4-game win streak and 11-game unbeaten streak at home. Righty Chris Bassett will be on the hill for the Jays tonight. Lefty Max Fried goes for the Yankees, who are now 3 back at Toronto for first in the East, AL East. Miami Dolphins offensive lineman Bayron Matos suffered an undisclosed injury at the end of today's practice and was flown to a hospital via helicopter. The injury happened in the final minutes of day 1 of Dolphins training camp. The team says Matos was airlifted in stable condition. It did not release information on the injury. The 24-year-old is in his second year in the National Football League. Adam Sandler's Happy Gilmore became one of the most beloved comedies of the 90s and codified the hockey-style swing as a mainstay on golf courses. Yeah, we all did it, but not for long. A hop, skip, and a hit, as Adam Sandler says. Happy Gilmore made comic heroes of Bob Barker, Christopher McDonald, and Carl Weathers, and turned lines like, "Are you too good for your home?" plausible things to ask golf balls. Now, nearly 3 decades later, and after years of batting away pleas for a sequel, Adam Sandler has finally put Happy's Bruins jersey back on. Happy Gilmore 2 debuts Friday on Netflix and is arguably the most anticipated streaming release of the summer. Oh, boy. The sports update is brought to you by Seat Giant. Stop paying U.S. dollars for games and concerts. Canadian-owned and operated with Canadians in mind. Super Bowl, college football, Taylor Swift, Justin Timberlake. We've got it all. Use promo code RPShow for 15% off now. Check us out at SeatGiant.ca. Kevin was on my mind. Kevin Galland. I was at his house Monday night for a barbecue. His son Matthew played in the Western Hockey League for the Moose Jaw Warriors and the Edmonton Oil Kings. And we were talking about, okay, they're hockey people. But Kevin's worked in the CFL. He's worked in AAA baseball. Without question, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest broadcaster ever outside the National Hockey League, Kevin Gallant, and his sons and I really get along. For some reason, I get along with young men. I think it's because I was one. I don't know. So Matthew and I were talking about a lot of things. That's his kid. He's going to be playing for the Cougars this year. But the Happy Gilmore, I said, have you seen the trailer for Happy Gilmore? And he said, oh, yeah. And, of course, it got around to the Nick Tarnowski golf course punch-up from a couple of weeks back and how that all went down and who apologized and who didn't and all the rest. But it's funny, Kevin said, Kevin Gallant, because he watches the show every day, he might be watching it right now. He goes, whenever you talk hockey, you just perk up. He goes, that is where your bread and butter will be on this show, talking hockey on the RP show. And I'm like, well, I do appreciate that. But what I will tell you is that everybody wants something different. And that's why we're the Golden Corral of sports talk, America's finest buffet. We're a buffet here. That's what we do. And I want to talk about the NFL, and I want to talk about the CFL. And he's like, but your hockey guests, they're so good. And I'm like, yes, but I don't really think of them as guests because they're my friends, you know. And I have not yet started piecing together next week's show in Calgary, but they'll be great. On Tuesday, we'll be at the Western Canadian Pro Hockey Scouting Foundation Induction Gala in this time slot. And they've vowed to put on all the guests for me. Craig Button's name has come up. I'm pretty sure Craig Button will be here from TSN, the former GM of the Flames. The next day at Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary, I'm just working on some Flames alumni. We'll see how it goes. One day at a time guy here. I'm worried about tomorrow's show, not next week, but it'll be great. But I appreciate those that say hockey is where it's at for this show and that I perk up when I'm talking about it. But I love all the leagues, and I love baseball too. Which, by the way, there's the boys. The Gurney twins, Austin, the all-star first baseman of the Moose Jaw Millers, and his twin brother, Rob, catcher for the Weyburn Beavers. Did you want to say that again, Producer Corey? Overtime is coming up next, the final segment of the day, everybody. So we'll go over what we've talked about today, and if there's something we haven't addressed that you would like to, now's the chance to get at us. 902-518-3033, Western Dodge text line, or the YouTube chat. And we'll be right back on Game Plus Television and streaming after this.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with the Rod Pedersen Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Pedersen Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Hey, everybody. It's me, the champ. We're back live for Overtime, the final segment here for Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. Did I tell you? It'll be 1 week from today that we'll be live from Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. Randy and Michelle ready for us? We're going to have a live studio audience. I know that for a fact. You're welcome to come down too. Just don't get in our way. We'll be live from Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary, 28th Street, Northeast Calgary. But if you can't wait till next Wednesday, go check them out. As I say, an amusement park for hockey players. As they say, where skill and fun collide. And it's going to be big fun. 2 shows in Calgary next week. Ryan writes in from upstate New York, and he says, great show, Rod. Hope everyone makes it a great Wednesday. See you at the buffet chocolate fountain tomorrow. Bomber Boy, who's a different cat, but he's here every day, so we respect him for that. Bomber Boy writes in, he says, nobody minds that golf and soccer grow mold at the RP show. I'll say this again. We should in life learn from our experiences. I'm exhibit A of that. I've learned from some harsh lessons. Bomber Boy, you don't learn. But that's fine. That's you. That's your life. I don't cast aspersions on that. But I'm not going to sit here and talk about golf and soccer because I don't like either one. So I don't think anybody tunes in here to hear what I have to say about golf or soccer. And that call from John Paddock, as I brought up earlier in this program today, when I was talking about something I'm like, this was the most historical event in blah, 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 blah. John Paddock literally called in. He was driving around the Queen City, had the number in his phone to call into the studio at the radio station and tell me that I was wrong. I was running off at the mouth, and I didn't know, and I deserved it. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about things I don't know about. And people seem like to think that that's like some groundbreaking concept. No, thank you, John. Thank you for straightening me out. He was right. This had happened. I was wrong. There was a more pivotal incident before I was born that I didn't even know about. And John Paddock straightened me out. And that's why, with certain people I see in this broadcast industry, some I won't name and some I will. It's not like John Paddock didn't like me. We had all kinds of discussions about hockey and so forth. As a matter of fact, when John Paddock was hired as coach of the Regina Pats, I didn't think it would work. And I did several interviews with him as my role as the talk host. I wasn't even the voice of the Pats at the time. And I asked him what his thoughts are on the CFL and if he's following the Rough Riders. He's like, if you know John, this won't surprise you. He's like, I don't follow the CFL. Live in the air. And he was just kind of a grumpy guy. So at that time. So anyways, I had found that I had to do a couple games on the radio and a fill-in. And John Paddock was the coach of the Pats. So I'm like, oh my God, I was dreading having to do the pregame interview with him because I'm like, the guy's clearly crusty, obviously doesn't like me, but we got to do this interview. So I go down there, interview him, 5-minute pregame interview, hit stop, pick up my tape recorder. I'm going to walk out. He's like, hey! I'm like, yeah? Tiger Williams says you're a great guy. Maybe. Well, if Tiger likes you, I like you. Come over here and let's chat. And this was after all of this stuff before. And then we ended up getting along great. All because of Tiger Williams. Thank you, Tiger, for bringing us together. And that's the wonderful thing about hockey people and, to a certain extent, sports people. But there's a story for you that I've never, ever told before. I do miss Tiger a lot. And when I see him, we have a lot to catch up on. I can't call him anymore because he's deaf. He's not deaf. That's good. You're sorry about what? Oh, you cued me a minute early. Well, okay, not a big deal. It's only national television. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta writes in. He says, wacky Wednesday and another crazy day at my house. Well, again, watch the show later. And hopefully live tomorrow in my new air-conditioned house. Tony, I appreciate you stopping in to say, hey, that's the main thing out of all of this, I think. Thank you, Tony. And we'll be seeing you next week. BW writes in. He says, I'm hoping I am back in Canada next week for the Calgary show. Thanks for asking my XFL questions. Well, that is the inside secret. When you guys write in with your questions for the guests, it's less work for me. And then it gets you all hooked because you think you might get your questions asked. So you got to tune in every day. Not my first rodeo. But like I said, I try to make a habit of learning from experiences in my life. Some lessons harder than others, but we don't ever stop. 902-518-3033, but we only have 90 seconds left. Bomber Boy says, I purposely throw on golf and soccer to fall asleep to. That used to be my thing. I would put on golf to nap. Now I don't have any problem napping at all. Sometimes I have 2 or 3 in an afternoon. Oh, Jeff the Stamps fan says, Adam Sandler made Bob Barker. I don't know about that. Listen, Jeff the Stamps. Listen, you hear, but you don't listen. What I read was exactly this. Happy Gilmore made comic heroes of Bob Barker, Christopher McDonald, and Carl Weathers. Bob Barker was always a hero. He was the guy with the skinny, long microphone. None of us had ever seen a microphone like that before. Bob Barker. But nobody thought of him as being funny until Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore made comic heroes of Bob Barker and blah, 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 blah. That's what I read. Go back and rewind if you have to. Didn't say Adam Sandler made Bob Barker. Bob Barker made Bob Barker. Just had to clear that up before we call it a day. Tomorrow, Les Lazaruk will be back with us, and I don't know who the guest will be, but what I can guarantee you is it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Thank you, producer Corey. Thank you to Les. Thank you to Reid Johnson, and we'll see you all tomorrow, noon Eastern, right here on Game Plus TV.
Now I'm the whore and the pimp. That's where the money is.
How about that?